Hey, Hoff. Why don't you start the episode? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Obscure Chatter. I am your host, Miss Terri J. Doty. And if you're new to Obscure Chatter, just a little reminder, you might occasionally hear a beep. It's more often a big thing whenever I've got a guest. Forever ago when I had guests, before the pandemic, where the engineer that is Hoff, who I was referring to, would beep out mentions of the thing that I'm currently watching. Now, why did I feel that it was necessary to edit out that? One is just to play it safe and make sure that I don't upset anybody that might own the show or movie that I'm talking over. And also, whenever it's especially a thing whenever I've got a guest. Sometimes we're prone to kind of tune out when people list preferences and things that they adore. So rather than focus on why they adore a specific thing, just focus on their adoration. And it's obviously evolved a lot over the now 2 years that we've been doing Obscure Chatter, but here we are, and it's lovely. And you know what? Hoff and I have talked about this here and there, because we've been doing the show for 2 years now, and I'm curious sometimes if I go back and forth with it, and so does he, about having guests back, because Obscure Chatter is not something that I initially had planned to do just as a solo recording person. But I gotta say, as much as I love my colleagues and friends that I've had on the show, the solo shows are their own little thing. So, excuse me as I scratch my ear, and you might have heard like a snippet of the show that I'm watching. It's a totally different vibe. It's kind of what I foresaw for myself whenever I was late teens, early 20-something, majoring in radio, television, film. I wanted to produce my own radio show, and I wanted to do it like this. I wanted it to be a talk show with, people calling in, which is kind of how we started those first 3 episodes of that anime show. And then took questions from people. And I love when I get questions from you guys, but I don't know. I'm torn on that. So would you guys be down for solo episodes from here on out, or would you like guests? There are no wrong answers, but I would love to hear from you. So at Obscure Chatter on Twitter, or at T-Dotally on Twitter, or both. Just search my name if you don't know how to spell T-Dotally. It's basically teetotaler, but it's T-Doty. T-Dotally. It's Sunday. But yes, right now, oh my gosh, I forgot how amazing this opening is, Hoff. Just the music and everything. Today I am watching. It's a show that I have not seen since I finished it. And I forget how real it started out, but it's one of those shows. If you're ever hanging out with me or at a convention, which is something that I'm not opposed to doing anymore, even though that terrifies me in person or something. If you're like, hey, episode doo-doo-doo, were you watching this? I might actually tell you, and then have to kill you if you tell anyone else. But yeah, talking about conventions, I've been hit or miss on whether or not I'll be ready to do them again. I have gotten a couple of offers, and they just haven't been catching me, I guess, in the frame of mind where that doesn't just terrify me. And I'm fully vaccinated, but I don't know, it's like that overcorrection type of thing, if that makes sense, where it's like, yeah, I could go to a party now and I could know, like, for a fact that everyone there is fully vaccinated. And it'll still kind of freak me out. Now, I will say last night I did my first, or we did, I'm sorry, occasionally I have to do the couple we thing. We did our first double date since before the pandemic, and it was so bizarre how not bizarre it was. And it's like, because it was so normal, like that was weird. And I'm curious, like, have you guys started going out? Hopefully, if you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated and you have everything at, like, every resource in order to do that, because I know my friends in other countries don't have access to it the way that Americans do. And then also, I just know that it's harder for certain age groups right now. But if you are fully vaccinated and going to the same places that, people that aren't vaccinated are going, it's kind of terrifying. But Hoff and I met up with some of his high school friends, which has been really fun. It's been really, really fun to talk to people that knew Hoff way back when. Believe it or not, it's just that thing that you kind of lose touch with people after you leave school. People flow in and out of your life. And I moved around a lot as a kid, and it wasn't really until I think I was 17 that I ever lived in a house. I always lived in apartments, condos, duplexes, trailers, a lot of trailers, like to the point where, like, when people are like, oh yeah, we're living in a tiny home, I'm like, well, that's a trailer. But enjoy your trailer, but just call it a trailer, because that's what it is. I always just kind of left friends behind, tried to do the pen pal thing. And, you write a couple of letters, but when you're like 10, it's just impossible. You're very easily distracted, and you're also trying to make friends there. And for me, I'm 37. When I was 10, the internet wasn't readily available to me. I think a couple of years later, like, we got our first, like, computer in the house, and it was a wintergreen Acer. With like free CD-ROMs, like, what? I can like put in the Blockbuster CD-ROM and like watch like a couple of like trailers. That's crazy. Or I played Are You Afraid of the Darks? Orpheus's Curse. All of these things are dating me, and it's just what it is. Please remember me as someone that was born in 1984, and definitely wanted to continue to remind you that she's old, or older than most of the people that are probably listening. But anyways, yeah. When I met Hoff, we were both working at Guitar Center, and he had a couple of friends from his old days. But as you go through the years, especially when you start dating someone new, it's been shown that, like, every time there's a new relationship, everybody on the two people on both sides of that relationship on average lose 2 to 3 friends. And I guess that kind of happened. I know that happened with me. But where Hoff is a ride or die friend, but people flow in and out of your life. So it wasn't until I'd say late 2019 that Hoff, he reconnected with a bunch of people at the same time. And I know that he had fun because it was one of the few times that he stayed out really late and there wasn't, a show. It was just him and his friends talking. So I've gotten to know his friends from the old days, luckily, and I don't think they hate me. But, yeah, we did a hang and caught up, and it was really interesting to just be out again, and it was kind of new for them to be out too. And yeah, it like we had some drinks, and we were going to play Cards Against Humanity, which, if you know me at all, I'm not a big game person, but like stuff like that, stuff where you can be like silly and funny, those are always easy things. But if you're ever like, hey, I want to play a game that Terri likes, trivia games are fun for me. Chess, I love. Like I always have my chessboard out, and I'll try if I can to play it on my birthday. I don't know why on my birthday I have to play chess at least a little bit. Boggle, all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Also, hanging out with Stephen's friends makes me nostalgic because I know that I've been hesitant to book like lunches and stuff with friends. And my friend Monica and I were talking about this, where over the past year plus now of the pandemic, I'd say all of us have gone through some pretty major life things, and not all friendships or relationships in general have survived that. I've seen a dear friend go through a divorce in the middle of this pandemic. I've seen people, lose loved ones and lost loved ones myself in the middle of this. But then there are also just friendships and just working relationships that get strained or suffered or just haven't survived. And I'm not immune to that. So seeing Hoff and his old friends, I've really wanted to connect with older friends of mine. And there's a friend that lives in Arizona now, and we went to high school together. And when I talk to her, it's like no time has passed. And I love those friends that you don't talk to all the time. But when you do, you don't ever have to feel like you have to catch up with their lives. You're just like implanted there, and it's fun. I love it. But I also do love seeing like, dude, remember when, or like talking like, hey, you remember when we went to this insane asylum or whatever? That never happened to me. But Stephen and his friends, they had some insane stories about ghosts. Cause I don't know if you guys know, but, I've ghost hunted and done all of that stuff. If you've heard that anime show, you know that for a fact. I'm a bit of a skeptic. I've become less skeptical. And I will say, if I have a recommendation for you, if you are remotely interested in the paranormal stuff, real talk, I was not a big fan of Ghost Adventures. I felt like Zach Bagans was too much of, what is it? A provocateur or whatever the actual term is, like in the ghost hunting scene. And then I realized I'm like, oh, well, and he does that intentionally, blah, 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 love or hate him. And Hoff really wanted to watch something paranormal, like a paranormal doc, but the good ones are very few and far between. I've watched some really good ones, but mostly some really shitty ones. Like, I've been sitting there and I'm like, this is supposed to be about Slender Man, and all it is going, there probably isn't a Slender Man. And that's fine, but this isn't why... this was not the way the movie was marketed. But I watched Zach Bagans' Demon House, and it's been a while since a flick has affected me after I've watched it, where, I had to get up in the middle of the night to pee, and I'm like, nobody better come out and get me. And then I'm continuing to walk, and like a curtain, like a window that's right near the bathroom, the curtain like hits me, and I like attack the curtain, like, not today, Satan. But you might want to check that out. But if you are at all sensitive to those kind of things, proceed with caution. Watch the trailer, and if you're still into it and you watch it, message me on Twitter or tag me in a post or something. But I really liked it enough that I watched it again very shortly after, and then I got Discovery Plus. Mostly for paranormal stuff, like The Dead Files, which I'm also a big fan of. Guys, I never thought that I would be into these paranormal shows. And I know that I'm really into horror movies, but that's kind of a whole other thing. It's the people that are like, oh, you like horror movies? Here's this documentary about Ted Bundy. Like, no, I like horror. I don't like true crime. But even then, I've kind of gotten into true crime. But Discovery Plus has got a lot of really good stuff. And I've even started watching Ghost Adventures because of Demon House, which there are episodes where I'm like, this guy needs to get murdered by a ghost, preferably on camera. But then there are other times I'm like, oh, yeah. And my favorite person to watch in all Ghost Adventures episodes is Aaron, because I love his reactions. But yeah, we watched the Cecil Hotel one, and that made me really interested in all the crazy things that have happened in that hotel. And so now I'm going to watch the documentary that's on Netflix about that. There's all sorts of fun stuff. I guess aside from like reality stuff and like home improvement stuff, I haven't been watching anything fictional aside from Loki right now, which is good. I know that some people think it's kind of too slow, but I don't need everything to be ba 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 ba. But I mean, sometimes, you know, that's good. Like when you just want like a John Wick easy shooter mode type of thrill ride. Pardon me. Let's see, what else? Oh, Wave Listen to Me came out at the beginning of this month. So if you're interested in Wave Listen to Me, the Blu-ray is available. I got it through Right Stuff. I think a lot of people like, as I punch the microphone, a lot of people think that we are guaranteed to get discs from the studios that we work for. I mean, sometimes we do, but especially now, it's hit or miss on whether or not we're going to get them. So I bought myself Wave Listen to Me and Sakura Wars the animation, and I'm slowly collecting the manga for Wave Listen to Me. But yeah, check it out. And if you're into streaming, obviously Funimation.com for Wave Listen to Me in the English or the Japanese. And I gotta say, for the Japanese, it doesn't hurt me at all to admit Riho, Sugiyama, who voices the original Japanese for Minare Koda, murders that performance. And I just did what I could with my English performance to honor that. I did not try to replicate her performance at all, because there is no replicating that kind of vocal perfection. Seriously. You can quote me on that if you're ever interested in writing an article, like, because that was a whole thing that we talked about last night, because Hoff's friends are very interested in the process, and they're musicians and all that. But, you know, it's well, like, what do you prefer, the sub or the dub kind of question, where I can watch both. Like, I love Black Butler. And I think, like, without even knowing what, cause I'm in it here or there in different forms. Like, I'm a lot of like bits, and in the, what was the Book of Atlantic movie? I'm like, it's really awesome zombie, named Margaret, but I know how much work goes into a good dub, especially a dub that requires accent work. Even if everyone in that room is confident, it's just a different vibe. Matching flaps and the way things are written when you have to think about an accent, it's a different game. I love the dubs that we've done, but I fell in love with the show in the Japanese. So when I'm watching it in English, it's a totally different vibe than when I'm watching in the Japanese. I'm curious if that's the case for you guys as well. But yeah, I love the praise that we've been getting for Wave Listen to Me. Remember, a lot of that goes to the writing and the direction and the mix, because it's kind of insane to mix a show that's so very quiet. And Raleigh Pickens, who did the mix on that, did a phenomenal job. And Stephen Hoff, who you might know from everything in my life in some kind of way, he had fun with his actors, and you can tell. Like, not just me, but like Ian is hilarious, and it just works on a whole other level if you also know all of these people. So yeah, please check out Wave Listen to Me, sub or dub or both while eating a sub sandwich. It really doesn't matter to me. Just try to support this amazing show. And if you do watch it and you don't hate it, let me know. And if you watch it and you do hate it, you don't need to tell me that. Like at all. So on, what was it, last week, I shared some video of, Willow interrupting my, virtual meetup appearance that I had, through Zoom. And Zoom's been its whole thing, a whole other thing this past year. And I think we all know that without me having to explain why. But I've been very hesitant to do Zoom. Like, I don't know. I was paranoid about the free one. I had this I don't know. It was probably pure paranoia that I thought it was going to fuck with my gear, and I just didn't trust it to the point where I almost lost a gig saying no, if we're doing Zoom, I can't do it. Sorry. And the studio that, I said that to was very understanding. Probably too understanding, and worked it all around. And, now I'm man, I should have just sucked it up and tried. But, I've done a session with Zoom, Source Connect and Zoom, which I really wish, techie gripe, I really wish Source Connect would figure out video. But it's fine. Listen to's been a great option if you don't want to do heavily compressed audio. But it's hard. It can be. But in the middle of the Zoom thing, Willow interrupted. She interrupted the session it was basically my first virtual appearance that I ever did. And I loved it. I loved actually talking to people that go to panels again. And it was for this library in Allen, which I'd done before a few years prior. And I gotta say, I love going to cons and interacting, but there's something so special about getting questions from kids and teenagers, because even if it's the same question, there's just a different vibe to it. And it made me miss going to cons. So if you want to see me at a convention, feel free to recommend me and send conventions to terridoty.com or terridoty.com. I really don't like getting messages through Twitter hey, we were thinking about this. I'm no, don't do that. But, I'm excited, but also hesitant, because there is that thing about being maskless now that I'm still coming to terms with. I went to the mall the other day, and on all the signs for the entrance for the mall, they're if you are fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. And I still wore a mask to the point where Steve was you can take that off. I'm can we though? And there were a lot of people there, so it was very overwhelming. But I think we can still, respect each other's space, because also there are still people that are at risk, and then there's also kids to consider. So anytime I'm doing a big thing at all, then I'll quarantine, because most studios, the only studio that I've gone into since the mandate was lifted and since being vaccinated has been the one where I occasionally write, as well as voice act, and that's Okratron 5000, which they've gone above and beyond. In the thick of it, they went above and beyond. Just the UV lights and the air filtration systems, and the way that it's zero contact. It's just, I wish more studios did that. And maybe they will. I know that there's a lot of stuff changing as people are considering fully going back. But sometimes being remote is also just a lovely thing. But I do miss having an excuse to get out of the house. And oddly enough, it's a total random thing, but it's been a while since I've interacted with people. So there are microaggressions that I haven't missed. And there was a really, really weird one that happened to me this last week. And I actually, I talked to Stephen about it, which is always great. Sometimes I'm being a little overdramatic, but this happened, so I just need to calm down. And I explained what happened to Stephen, and he's like, "You're not being overdramatic. That was pretty shady." And then talk to a friend, and they're like, "Oh no, that's pretty weird." I'm like, okay, well, it's not. And isn't that so great when it's like, "No, you're not crazy." So, let me get some water before I start this. Being raised in two very different cultures, one being very it's really hard to say it without seeming like it might be something else, but my dad was very country and very white, and my mom is Mexican, and there are different vibes, especially when I didn't really realize it until my parents divorced, and my brother would go it would be this is dad's time, this is mom's time. And they definitely didn't handle stuff well. It was a lot of pitting my brother and I against, all right, we're going to spend time with dad, so we're going to hear a bunch of shit talk about mom. But we live with mom, and we only get the summers and occasional weekends with dad. So we're going to hear a bunch of shit talk about dad almost year round, and then a little bit about mom during the summer. And got to be very careful in balancing those balls. But then on top of it, there were the Dotys, who I share that last name, didn't particularly care for my mom for one big reason, and that's because she was Mexican. So I didn't know that for the longest time. I guess, it's these little microaggressions that you don't pick up on as a kid, but then you look back at some stuff and you're like, oh, that was fucked up. And as I've gotten older, there would be times, when I really wanted to do something to celebrate my heritage, and I would feel like it's not right because some people would flat out tell me that it's not right. You can't join LULAC. You look white. Well, I would love to do that though. I'm well, yeah, and they'll let you do it, but aren't you going to feel out of place? And then there are points where I've just straight up said, well, I guess I'm not Hispanic, I guess I'm not Mexican. So I guess I'll just stop talking about it. And then the other thing would happen where someone's like, who's that? I'm like, that's my mom. And they're like, really? That doesn't look like your mom. I don't know what to do here. And then finally, I just stopped giving a fuck about pleasing everybody because I don't fit a definition that is easy to consume. That's just never been my life. And it's been hard, and it continues to be hard, especially in this climate. I live in a time where people are saying stuff like, well, of course, the Hispanic rate for the vaccine is low because people are afraid if they're going to get the vaccine that they'll get deported, basically implying that anyone Hispanic is an illegal immigrant, and that comes with a lot of fucked up shit. And then I'm not even going to talk about the times where Trump was in power, and there were just moments where I wanted to leave the country. There were moments where I wanted to leave my state or my country, but it's if I don't stay and continue to be vocal and try to show that there are good people here. You know, that's what they want. But so I'm always very vocal about my experience and my heritage, but I was just casually doing something as an actor. I was in a position where I was acting, and I'd flubbed a character's name. And it was a Japanese character's name. I'll say that I've even fucked up my own characters' names over the years. And the directors, the good ones and the ones that are like, it can be hard, but here's how we're going to spell it phonetically. Try to stress, if it's a really long name, try to stress it here. But I made this joke, while the engineer was placing my second take. And it's a joke I've made before where I'm like, I'm a Mexican from Philadelphia. Why can't I say this Japanese name right? Just being an idiot. And the director came on and said that he doesn't think that I can call myself Mexican. And I was like, why? And he explained, well, I'm not from Mexico, so I can't call myself Mexican. And then I said, well, my family is from Mexico. And I was raised very much surrounded by my heritage, and a lot of my cousins are also mixed. I don't know anyone that's 100% anything, but I didn't say any of that. I said, excuse me, Mexican American. He's like, he just kind of blew it off, and it became kind of really tense because he talked about how people are being too concerned with representing and making sure that everybody knows that they're this, and that it's just overcorrection and being overly sensitive, and then it's going to blow up in everybody's face. And it got really tense to the point where I'm not going to lie, I took a shower after this, and right after my session, because it was early in the morning, and I was thoroughly lathering my hair and doing that jokey thing that I've always seen in movies that's so stupid. When the first thing that comes to mind is Sex and the City, where Charlotte's just continuing to lather until she just can't take it anymore and just walks out of the shower full still lather in her hair. I felt like that, where I just lathering, that seems really weird. And then well, that was a microaggression that I know that this person did not think about for a fucking second after the session was over. And this is someone that I've known for over a decade. But I don't know what to fucking do with that. But, so I told Stephen, I'm like, that's weird, right? That was really weird that it went all sorts of ways when I just casually made this joke about myself being a doofus for fucking up this name. That, by the way, really thinking about the name, I shouldn't have fucked up. I just totally read it completely wrong. Morning sessions. But Stephen happened to be with my friend Monica, and so Monica texts me, hey, Stephen told me about this. What the fuck? And I explained it fully to her. She's like, it's something where I'm just going to say it was likely just ignorance and not intentionally hurtful. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. She's like, but that doesn't make it okay. And I don't know why hearing it from someone that isn't me just meant so much. I think because I've worked so hard on trying not to be overly sensitive to the point where I attack before really a situation would call for it sometimes, and I've gotten better over the years. I will say in the last year, I've fallen into old patterns, that aren't healthy. And, life is a journey and a process, and I have to just basically start over and admit when I'm having a weak moment, a hair trigger reaction to stupid shit, where even Stephen's like, whoa, you haven't done that in a while. And I'm like, fuck, I probably need to talk about this. Fuck. But just owning up to it rather than just ignoring the fact that, I'm going back into old patterns. But so I guess maybe that's why I blew it off. And it's not like this huge deal. And I won't mention the person. I won't mention the studio it was, anything like that. But it was just weird. And I gotta say, that's not something I fucking missed about interacting with people. I don't know who missed that. We don't have to fully agree on everything, but that just did take me back to a really childlike place where I'm like, maybe I should just not mention things and just shut up and do my job, and not try to act like a person with a lived experience when work has to be done. It's fucked up, isn't it? Like, I'm asking that, knowing that you can't answer me, but, and perhaps it's a hard thing to kind of like connect to, so if you don't fully grasp it, I totally understand, but for me, that was just a really weird thing that just didn't need to happen. There wasn't anything that really should have triggered the response that I got to a stupid fucking joke that I was making at my own expense. Anyways. But I've noticed that keeps kind of being a thing. That's why I've pulled a bit back on social media. Like, I've toyed with going back to TikTok, and then like I have friends that are still on TikTok. They're like, don't bother coming back. And I'm still glad that I left Instagram, but I do miss seeing my friends. Like, I miss seeing like photos of my friends' kids, or their stupid dog. And yeah, sometimes the fucking food they ate. Sue me. But I missed interacting. But then sometimes when I think I'm just going to say something very funny, like I follow Volatile Mermaid on Twitter. Oh no, she twittin'. She is fucking hilarious. But the attention that she gets in her comments is fucking insane. She casually mentioned something about self-defense, and I had responded with something very real, where I said, I never walk like from a building to my car without my keys between my fingers. And that is something actually very real. I can be in the most comfortable place imaginable, like a place that I've been to a gajillion times. But this long walk, because I tend to park really far from my car to make my ass walk more. In Texas, it's very hard to get your steps in. You really actively have to try because 1, it's fucking ridiculously hot. And 2, it's just not very walker friendly. Like there are parts of my neighborhood where a sidewalk just fully ends for no reason. Like, oh, I guess, all right. And then people yell at me for like walking in the street. I'm like, there is literally nowhere else to walk unless I drive many, many miles that way to a park. Anyways, God, why am I punching this microphone? I'm sorry. But I just made that offhanded, and I got just like a percentage of what Volatile Mermaid gets, which is just like oh my God, you never should hold keys between your fingers. Here, like you're what's wrong with da-da-da-da-da. You live in Texas. Why don't you have a gun? Well, that's a whole other thing. But like it went on for days. I was getting messages just about how I'm a bad feminist, how I'm a shitty person for even suggesting that, when yes, there are better self-defense methods. I grew up in a very shitty area in numerous states. I am aware that there are better self-defense methods. My father was a prison guard. He taught me a whole lot of stuff about, to work with what you fucking got. And at the end of the day, I've got my claws, and I've got my keys, and I got a bunch of knives that you probably don't fucking see. But I casually made this comment on social media, and the people all these women replied with, yes, I totally understand. It's the mentality. Like, I never fully feel safe when I'm in public. I remember, if you recall, I was stalked for a number of years by someone. I never figured out who it was. It got to the point where he knew when I brought a guy home. It was just a friend, but like he knew when I was alone. He knew when my mother was out of town. If it was a prank, it wasn't fucking funny. I had my windshield busted once, and that was all just me being home. There have been points where oh my gosh, I've been followed to my car. I've been, I've watched friends get carried out of clubs after being drugged. I've seen all these horrible things. So me casually saying, I understand what it feels like to not ever fully feel safe in public, and getting met with that was insane. But we all have a bunch of shit going on. So that seems very trivial to talk about. Like, someone on Twitter didn't like what I said, but I don't know. There's just moments where I'm like, maybe I should it's that burn it all. Like, I should just get rid of all my social media. Then I'm like, I like interacting with you guys. Again, it's the panel thing too. I fucking love interacting with y'all, and you're not gonna get rid of me. I'm not gonna stop this podcast. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but that's just a little bit of what's been going on in the Terri brain insanity. Some of it makes sense. Some of it makes less sense. Some of it makes no sense at all. But then there's a lot of really great stuff happening. Like, Hoff and I just celebrated our 12-year wedding anniversary, which does not feel like it's been 12 years. And I think we celebrated more than we usually do. We definitely didn't do anything last year. But we went to Lonesome Dove in Fort Worth, which, if you're local to the area and you haven't been, it's bananas. Like, save up and, make a night of it. We did these rattlesnake rabbit sausage things. We did kangaroo nachos, which, I'm gonna be real, I was not fond of. I did not like the texture. I guess, like, Stephen and I couldn't really agree on what it kind of tasted like. I just didn't like it. But I got this beautiful cut of steak, and Stephen got this redfish, and had some cucumber jalapeno margaritas. And they knew it was on our anniversary, so at the end of the meal, they came out with some champagne and some sparklers to the table, and we had this really cool dessert, because either the chef or the owner, I'm not sure who, won Iron Chef with this dessert, and it was so fucking good. And also had to get some churros because I love churros. And yeah, it was a great night. I don't know, we just hadn't had a great night out in so long, and Stephen and I just in this year been through so much that we hadn't really done anything that wasn't something that we needed to do. It was just lovely. It's one of the best nights of my life. And then and we had a great weekend after that. And so it's been a really nice thing to be able to focus on some good shit right now, and being able to kind of unclench and the shoulders relax ever so slightly. And I really hope that you guys are getting some semblance of normalcy back and doing little things to bring yourself joy. I don't care what they are. And obviously that's me saying that's even a recipe to make it all dirty. And hey, you do you. Maybe literally. And I hope that brought you joy. Oh, God. I made that weird immediately. So it's just around that time that I'm wrapping up. If you ever have questions for the show, remember at Obscure Chatter and or at T-Dotally on Twitter. You can also message me via perpetuallyoffbeat@gmail.com. I really hope that the good and the bad of this episode brought you some entertainment and maybe felt like you were just hanging out with a friend, because at the end of the day, that's really what I want, is for this to feel like we're just hanging out and you're hearing your friend bitch and you're drinking way too much as the friend that is Terri won't shut up. July is going to be another solo show. Again, I would really love to hear from y'all if y'all are enjoying these solo shows, or if you are interested in a possible guest that comes with its own ways of booking. Like, are we going to do remote, or like if they're fully vaccinated, do we do this? Because that's all different scheduling and all that. But I want to hear from you guys. And until next month, I hope you're doing well. You're watching good shit, reading good shit, and letting good shit happen to you. Later.